one of the biggest perks of the business for me is, not paying as much in taxes as far as from my regular job because of my Toro constant purchases of new vehicles for Toro.
Are there any particular vehicles that you're targeting? Especially as we are going into a recession, I would guess that you're probably already thinking ahead.
Yeah, that's one thing I do. I feel like, the average Toro host thinks like 1 to 2 months ahead. A good Toro host thinks like 6 months ahead. I plan like 2 years ahead. And so I'm targeting cars like, I was sharing with James like my reservation list of, anytime there's a hot new vehicle, even in the future, two to 2 years out in development, if they allow me to put a reservation in and it's a low amount, like a lot of them are like $100, like I'll put a reservation down, even if I don't plan on buying the car, just in case. I can't really lose a refundable $100 deposit. And so I have probably, James would know because I was sharing him my list, and I do talk about it quite a bit on my channel, but I probably have about, 9 to 11 reservations out there right now of vehicles, everything from the Ford Lightning. I have 2 Hummers reserved of the Hummer truck. I have the Hummer SUV. I have 2 Cybertrucks. I have, as soon as they open up the Maverick banks, I'll have 2 of those. I'll put another 2 more of those. And so I'm kind of always trying to stay ahead of the game. I have to be ahead of the average consumer, way ahead of them. And I have to be ahead of really smart Toro hosts. And there's a lot of really smart ones out there. So my strategy, I don't want to say my most famous strategy, but my most productive strategy, since I don't have, and I'm not interested in having 20, 30, 40, 50 cars, since I'm only interested in having 10 cars, 8 to 12 cars, then I want each one of my car to be massively profitable. Otherwise, I want to make sure that my time is worthwhile. My goal is to, the amount of time that I put into the Toro business is more valuable than I'm able to make more money than I am at my current job. Otherwise, then I could be working there. So, I'm targeting a lot of newer vehicles. I have a lot of EVs. The teaser, the best one right now, if you can put that, you're able to put reservations in. For example, like a Ford Lightning, there's like 200,000 reservations. A Cybertruck, there's like 1.5 million reservations. Like if you put a reservation on that, you're like kind of 2 years, 3 years too late. But Fisker is a company that a lot of people have forgotten about, and they made a while back. They made some cool cars, and Fisker has the Fisker Ocean, and then they also have. There's only about 30 to 40,000 of those reservations, but they also have the Fisker Pair, which only has maybe 3,000 to 5,000 reservations, and that's going to be a very economical EV. They're saying $29,000 before tax credit. So if you take a $29,000 car and a $7,500 EV tax credit, that's a $22,000 EV, and there's only like 3,000 to 5,000 reservations of that vehicle. They're pushing the Fisker Ocean, so that's a vehicle you can put a deposit. I think the deposit is $250. And if I was new to the game, like that's a vehicle I would be putting down. I mean, you can't lose on that. And the nice thing about that is you're able to lock in a price on a vehicle that is not going to go up. And Rivian tried to do that. Rivian had a lot of reservations on their vehicles, and then they realized that they couldn't make them, after 2.5 years of COVID inflation. And they tried to raise their reservation price like 10 grand for their trucks, and it almost took the company under. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not much. I mean, there was a massive uproar, and Tesla's usually been good with this as well. If they give you a price and you reserve it at a certain price, that price usually sticks for most companies, especially a new company. And I think the future of EVs is going to be, if you look at what makes a car, an EV car, it's pretty simple. It's batteries, it's electric motors, and yes, you need to have good intuitive, technology as far as screens and all that. But the bottom line is, for the successful EV cars, it's going to be about design. And Henry Fisker is very good at design, and I think that's a company that I'm excited about it, and I'm looking forward to get several of those. I have Ocean on reserve, and I have two of the pairs at a dirt cheap price of $29,000 starting price. So you really can't lose with those type of things. I'm always on the lookout. I am, more in tune with the auto industry than I think, anybody out there that I know. And I'm always looking at what new manufacturers are coming out with, and I want to be kind of like first in line. I want to get my spot there. And sometimes I buy the vehicle, sometimes I don't. The Hummer was a vehicle that I was not planning on purchasing. I was looking at $90,000, $100,000 for a Hummer. I don't think they're going to, hold their value long term like a Tesla will, just because of, as EVs traditionally don't. But if I'm not keeping it long term, if I'm keeping it a year, 18 months, it doesn't have to hold its value long term. It only needs to hold its value for a short term, and I can get a lot of money from that. So I'm probably going to end up getting a Hummer when I originally wasn't planning on it. But this goes back to me putting in a reservation for $100. That a refundable $100 deposit. You can't lose with that. So definitely, look for that as well.
Yeah, and I'm always like curious when I see other hosts or other hosts that I personally know, kind of understanding, where they see themselves going. Like what do they see their business being like in a few years? A few years. Maybe they won't be doing it. And one of the things that I love about your channel is that you talk about all these things. Like you are always sharing kind of what your next steps are. Here's the things that I'm looking into. And so that's one of the reasons that I really enjoy watching your content. And I'm always wondering, although you put all that information out there, is like, what does he have planned for the future, as a host? So is that something that you can share with anyone that, maybe hasn't watched your channel yet?
I've got big plans. I really think that I have a video coming up talking about recession proofing your Toro fleet. It's I recorded today. We got some editing to do to get it out there. But I think if you've been in Toro for a little while, there's ebbs and flows to this business, right? Just like anything else. And right now, there's a lot of hosts on Toro, and there's probably too many. And so we're going to see in the next year, you're going to see what happened at the beginning of COVID. Beginning of COVID, you had like 3 months, 4 months where pretty much everything was shut down. And so you had a lot of people who had loans and car loans. They just had to literally sell off their cars at dirt cheap prices because the values of cars were not going up. They just collapsed. And the whole Toro, the host game, you had the really strong Toro hosts. They rose to the top, and people that were not, really did not have a lot of business sense or were a little too aggressive with their loans, were over leveraged, like they just got out of the business and had to sell off their fleet. So you're going to see that happen in the next 12 months as we go into recession. There's almost too many hosts out there for consumers. And so the really good hosts are going to get stronger, get better, get sharper. They're always learning. They're always, learning and getting better. And then there's just the average people that just stay put, or they just don't have longevity in their business models. They feel like they're making money, but they're really not when it comes to the depreciation of their cars. And so there will be a separation. Then you'll have a lot of people that once they realize that they're not making any money, then they'll get out of the game, and it'll kind of thin back out again. And then it's just a cycle that happens. So this next 12 months, I think you're going to really see a lot of hosts get out of the business, and then you're going to see the really, good, productive hosts really rise to the top and be even more productive. So for me, the other thing you're going to find out is banks are getting very, very strict with financing already, and it's going to get stricter. And so, I've been preaching on my channel for 6, 7, 8 months that, if you can get 2% loans, I have the majority of my loans, over half of my loans are at 1.99%. So if inflation is, the Fed states is 8 and 9%, the real inflation is like 10 to 12, maybe even 15%. And I can lock in 2% loans on in-demand cars that potentially are going to go up in value in the short term like that was just no brainer for me. So I've really been able to build out a really strong fleet. I did my values recently, and I'm like, well over $500,000, about $555,000 worth in the values of my cars. Yes, I have a lot of auto loans, but my auto loans equal up to maybe 300,000. So that puts me in a very strong position going into a recession, model, in the sense that, there's people who, the banks are not going to give people loans on some of these really hot, nice, expensive cars because they got a bunch of loans already and they're over leveraged already. And banks, just like in 2008, in the financial collapse of the houses, banks just aren't going to be lending out money like they've been the last 2, 3, 4 years. And so the way you're going to be able to get loans and the way you're going to be able to get like in-demand vehicles is having cars that have massive amounts of equity. I have a lot of cars that have $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 in equity. And so if I'm trading in a car that, I have like, for example, Kia Carnival that I've got over $20,000 in equity in. So, that car is a very cool car. It's a great car for Turo. I think it should be on your list if you can find a decent price on one. But I mean, that's not a car that like gets me excited. I have the C8 E-Ray that's coming out, and that car is going to be around $100,000 or more, and that's going to be a all-wheel drive. Corvette, the first ever all-wheel drive Corvette. And so I'll be able to trade cars like the Carnival or my Defender or different vehicles like that on a vehicle that very few people can get a hold of and very few people that banks are gonna give money to. So that's what I'm targeting. It's just like the same thing in a recession model where, people who are over leveraged and bought houses and cars that they can't afford, there's a lot of very smart, wealthy people that just stockpile cash and stockpile, their resources. And in a recession is when they double and triple their wealth. And I want to try to do that as far as my Turo business. My ultimate goal, I had a goal in the beginning when I got into the Turo business was I wanted to use the Turo business to get me in a position to purchase a Tesla Roadster. And so that's really my strategy. And that's my end game as far as that. And I have another idea of what I want to use this Tesla Roadster for. It's not going to be putting on the Turo platform. I'm not going to give the keys to a stranger to a car that'll do 250 miles per hour. So be assured. But, I'm well on my way to where I want to be as far as, hitting that goal. And it really is all because of the Turo business.